Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie. I have a new camera and mic, so excuse any technical difficulties. I tried this yesterday, did not go well. Let's hope this goes better. I'm here to talk about all the books I read in April. I did have 2 reading vlogs, so let me quickly cover those books real quick. I already said that. First, I did a reading vlog reading popular YA fantasy, and it went better than I expected. First, I had a second attempt at Throne of Glass. Last year, I tried the audiobook, wasn't for me. This year, I tried the physical copy and I really liked it. This book follows Selena, who is a complete badass. She's an assassin, she's imprisoned for being an assassin, and she gets an offer to compete to be the king's assassin, which is kind of ironic because that's what she's in jail for, but whatever. So she goes to the kingdom and she's in this competition. There's 23 other villainous men, but they start dropping like flies, and so there's this murder mystery going on. There's a love triangle that bothered me when I was reading this, but then I read a couple more YA fantasies. It doesn't bother me as much now. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's like a chicken in distress outside. Are you done? Okay, I think the chicken's done, but my favorite part of this was just Selena. In general, I thought she was a really badass character, and I hate it in books when like a badass character is explained to be a badass, but then doesn't follow up with any badassery. But Selena, she was truly a badass. Then unfortunately, I didn't enjoy Shatter Me. I DNFed it halfway through. It was mostly just the writing, the way it was written. It was very poetic, but very dramatic, like overly dramatic, lots of hyperbole. There is an author's note in the beginning of this explaining that as the main character matures, the writing does as well, but I just don't have it in me, at least right now, to continue to get to that point. This is following our main character, Juliet, and her touch is fatal. She can hurt, maybe kill people with it. I thought that was interesting. There was also a pretty big plot twist right in the beginning of this, but that's really all that happened from the beginning to the middle of this. Like nothing was really happening. There was a lot of romance in here though, so if you're looking for that, I feel like if the level we got to in just the first half is any indication, then the rest of the series is going to be great for romance, so maybe I will stick it through. Stick it through? Is that a phrase? Then I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and this was definitely my fave of the bunch. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4.5. We're following Jude, who's thrown into this fairy world as a child after watching her now sort of foster dad kill her parents. I remember reading this intro like a few years ago, and wow, it's like crazy bloody, which I appreciate. Humans are really looked down upon, and Jude really wants to solidify herself as, at first she wants to be a knight, and so she is sort of training. You get to see her skills build up. The Cruel Prince is also a character, and he is a bully toward our main girl, but Jude does not take it lying down. She is a very angry character, which was honestly really fun to read. Jude herself, she made some questionable decisions that didn't make any sense sometimes, and I think that's just a thing that happens a lot in YA, where the characters make a decision to help further the plot, but I think everything else was so good in here that I can just dismiss that. My favorite part of this was the world building. There were so many different creatures, so many different fairies, lots of rich detail. The writing itself, I loved it. And also it was just this wonderful mix of mystical but also sort of dangerous. There were crazy events happening at the end of this, lots of things going on. Wow. The romance in here, because there is a sort of love triangle. It's kind of weird because it's not very romantic writing, but like romantic things are happening occasionally. So I wouldn't say it's like my favorite YA fantasy romance, but definitely my favorite YA fantasy of the bunch. And then unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy Once Upon a Broken Heart. I gave it 2 stars. This is following a girl named Evangeline, and she's devastated because this boy that she's in love with is going to marry her stepsister, and she's convinced that he's under a curse. So she goes to a fate, the Prince of Hearts, and in this world the fates are sort of like mythological gods and goddesses, and she begs the Prince of Hearts to stop this marriage. I thought that's what the whole book was going to be about. That's over in chapter 1. This book just follows the events and all the plot changes that Evangeline goes through. She goes to many different places. There's so much happening in here, and I think for some people that's great that the plot is always moving and always going somewhere else, but for me, I felt like it really distracted me, and because there was so much plot, I feel like the character development was really like low. Things would happen to our main character, or our main character would make decisions, and I really felt nothing because I didn't really feel close at all to our main character. So yeah, not my favorite. I think I'm giving this 2.5 stars. I do have the second book already though, so I'm going to be trying to read it. I have heard better things about that one. I will say that the romance in here, it was a good setup, so I'm excited for that. Then in a weekend reading vlog, I finished these 3 books. First, Magnolia Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. This is the third book in the Magnolia Park series, the second one following Magnolia, and this is about Magnolia, a girl who's in her mid-20s and this boy that she loves named BJ, and just them being so annoying. And I'm not alone. Like, all of the other characters that aren't in this main relationship, they think it's so annoying. Jonah, who's one of my favorite characters, and I kind of want him to have a book, he said it best. He says, "Oh fuck, I forgot how annoying you two are." I could not agree more. Jessa Hastings' writing, I really have grown to love it. I think it's very poetic in a way that I enjoy. I think it's so quotable. I underline things left and right. I feel it emotionally. There was a scene in here in the first quarter of the book where I actually cried. But Magnolia herself as a character is probably my least favorite character ever. She's so annoying to me. She's just so mean, like for no reason. She'll whisper right in front of someone else and she will say, "I'm whispering to make that person feel bad." What? Are you 12 years old, Magnolia? What are you doing? What saved this book, though, was in part 2, a certain character comes in. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but it made the book. The ending was, of course, devastating, as always, and so I am excited to go further in this series because the next one is following Daisy, who I enjoy much more. I think I'm going to end up giving this a 3-star. Then I finished Samantha Schweblin's 7 Empty Houses. These are 7 short stories about 7 different households. There is a very, very long story in here that feels very, very long about this old woman. My God, it made me so scared to get old. And overall, I feel like this had that empty feeling that short stories give that was perfect. Like, I think this was written so well. However, I don't want depressing stories anymore. I just don't. It doesn't do it for me anymore, especially because this is depressing in a very empty way, not a really sad way, if that makes any sense. So like the writing is 5 stars, but my overall enjoyment was probably a 3-star. I will say that this author did a wonderful job of having this creepy feeling in this book. There were a couple creepy things, but overall nothing really happened in any of these stories, but there was this overwhelming sense of like menace, which is very cool actually. And then I finished The Darkest Temptation, which is the 3rd and I think final book in the Maid series. This is mafia romance. I really, really like the 2nd book in this series. The 3rd one, I don't really think so. The concept was actually really good. I mean, it's problematic. Don't get me wrong, but we're gonna forget about that. Our main character goes to Russia to find out some family secrets. She's sort of rescued by this man. He starts spoiling her and they get romantic and she has this huge fat crush on him and then he ends up kidnapping her. So it is an abduction mafia romance story. Weirdly enough, I've read a few of those. I will say that the setup of them having a sort of romance before he turns into an evil character was actually pretty interesting, as well as just really funny because our main character thinks she's like in a Mary-Kate and Ashley movie and then like, no, girl. The thing is though, once she is kidnapped, which happens pretty quickly, like nothing is going on. Like there's some sexy scenes, obviously this is a romance, but the plot is nowhere to be found. And yeah, this felt like it took forever to finish. The characters, I just wasn't as in love with them as I wanted to be. The 2nd book, I was in love with those characters. This book, they were fine. There was lots and lots of potential, but sadly, this is gonna be probably a 2.5. And now onto some books that I read that I didn't really vlog on. I did sort of touch on this. There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. Oh my God. I was so excited for this book. It's another problematic dark romance and it's about a serial killer who sort of becomes obsessed with this girl and they fall in love, which yes, that is not okay, but it's a book, okay? So I was excited. I don't want to talk about it. But I think I do have a limit and the limit was reached in here. Maybe it could have been better if certain things had changed. I think with this kind of book, you know that the main guy is evil. Like he's straight up evil. And I think I could have actually seen past it because we're all waiting to see why they end up turning into a romance. You know what I mean? That's the moment I'm most interested in here is like, what is going to be the straw on the camel's back that makes them love each other. It just happened so randomly and there was no reasoning. It just kind of happened for literally no reason. I was so annoyed. I think I even started like looking back, like, did I miss a page? What was happening? So that really screwed everything up, honestly, from there. But also our main character, obviously this is a romance, so I'm expecting some sort of explanation for why he does the things he does, or at least an explanation of like, I hate everyone and could kill everyone except for you. But even at the end of this, he still wanted to like kill her. So I just don't know if I can get down with someone who's not a simp for the main love interest. Don't get me wrong, I love reading about serial killers, especially their point of view, but not in a romance. Like, for me to really enjoy that point of view with no sort of explanation or redemption, then I'm gonna need it to be literary fiction or a thriller and not a romance, if that makes any sense at all. Plus, something happened right at the end that, like, I don't really want to tell you because it could be a spoiler, but it was absolutely not necessary, and I think it was badly done. Our main girl is like really traumatized about something, and then he sort of does it to her, but it's not, it is I don't even know how to talk about it because it really turned me off completely because it was just not, no. Ugh, I'm just done. Plus, there were a lot of things unexplained in here, like why he had this other guy that I don't even know. I want to stop talking about that book. I did end up reading The Hole by Hiroko Ayamada. This is a sort of retelling of Alice in Wonderland, and it's very on the nose at one point. A character starts explaining how it's exactly like Alice in Wonderland, which is actually kind of funny. But it's about this young woman who's married. She ends up moving in the same neighborhood as her mother-in-law, and it's just about her sort of being unemployed and having this very weird life where she doesn't really know what she's doing. It's almost like a fever dream because the days sort of roll on top of another and she is losing time, sort of. There's also holes involved. She like stands in a hole, but she doesn't go anywhere. So it's very interesting and it's very smart. It's very well written, but I'm too stupid, I think. There were some really creepy feelings in this one as well, just like Seven Empty Houses. So I think that writing is really cool because like nothing really happens in here, but you feel this sense of like something's coming. So I'll probably end up giving this 3.5. The long guy just showed up and my lunch break's almost over, so I'm gonna talk about my last book in just a second. All right, it's a couple hours later, I'm done with work, and I'm glad I waited because I forgot about 2 other books that I read. I read this random ass manga. I saw that Erin with Booked and Busy was reading it, and then I saw that Nina and Gabby had also rated it like 4 or 5 stars, and they all said the same thing, that this was really weird but surprisingly wholesome, and I would have to agree. Our main character has had this sweating problem since she was a little kid, and she was horribly bullied for it, and I actually felt so bad for her. And so she's super insecure about both her body odor and the amount that she sweats. She's really secluded herself. She like goes to the bathroom and like washes herself constantly all throughout the workday. So she works for like a scent sort of company where they make products, perfumes or body washes. She uses all their products, and she is looking at a display one day, and one of the guys from upper management who make the products and test out the scents, I don't know, he walks past her and he smells her. And he is just obsessed with how she smells, and he does some inappropriate workplace sniffing. And it looks so like harassment in this picture, but it's harmless. It really is. It's explained. He just really likes her scent, and he has a very acute sense of smell. And so they come up with this working relationship where they get together and she helps him create products, but then they sort of get together. The guy was so funny. He was like a dog. First of all, his sense of smell was very acute, but also he was so excited and he just acted like a dog. I don't know if I'll continue in this manga series, but it was fun. I read it very quickly. Yeah, it was kind of weird but wholesome. I also read the 5th book in this Sophie Lark series. I think this one's called Broken Vow. This one follows the eldest girl in the Irish family. Her name is Riona. I've been waiting for her book because she's a type A character. That's my type of character. I love reading about them because they're so different from who I am. This is a bodyguard romance between her and her bodyguard. At the beginning of this book, her life is endangered several times, and so her family and her brother-in-law's family get a character from the 4th book. Sorry, I don't want to be too confusing about people who haven't read this series. A bodyguard comes and protects her, and they get closer. She's very closed off, and I kind of like those characters because seeing them get to their breaking point is really fun. And the action in this, as always, was really good. The only thing that was just like whatever to me was that this kind of turned into a ranch romance. And that's just not my cup of tea, especially when I'm going in for a mafia romance. And also, I don't know, Sophie Lark's smut just doesn't do it for me, but I still think this was good. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. And then finally, I listened to My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. What I've been doing lately is I put in library holds for different audiobooks that I'm thinking about purchasing, and I'll listen to a chapter or 2, and if I like it, I'll usually buy the book to read it physically because that is my preferred method of reading. However, I started this audiobook, ordered the book, but I didn't stop listening to it because I couldn't. I listened to it all in one sitting, and it was just so well done. Also, Julia Whalen, I think, did the narration, and I'm obsessed with her. This is about a woman, a young woman. I don't remember her name, and it's not on the back, so sorry. She is young, thin, and pretty, and she lives in New York City. This is set in late 2001, so you kind of know what's gonna maybe happen. There are references to the Twin Tower buildings, so I thought it was pretty cool that there is this building sort of tension because I'm waiting for any reference to 9/11. I'm not gonna let you know if it's mentioned here or not, but I thought that was like weirdly something that drove the plot that was completely unsaid, and I'm sure that the author did that purposefully, and I thought it was actually very, very interesting. Our main character though, she is one of the most unlikable characters I've ever read. Although I was reading some of the Goodreads reviews, and some of the reviews were like, I love this character, she's just like me, and I'm just like, because my initial reaction is like, this is a satire, right? Our main character has quit her job. She's gotten to her breaking point, which is not what makes her unlikable in any means. She decides to hatch this plan where she will have a year of rest and relaxation, where she's gonna try to be unconscious for most of it. And so she finds this, I guess, psychiatrist or nurse practitioner who will give her medication if she lies about like exactly how she's using them or what she's using them for. And this nurse practitioner or whatever kind of medical professional she is, oh my God. It was some of the funniest scenes, but also like, oh my God, this is so dangerous. Our main character is just trying to be completely out of it. The thing that makes her unlikable is just how she treats her friend. And her friend is annoying, okay? I'm not gonna pretend she's not, but God, this main character just manipulates everyone around her, and she's very selfish, and it's just so well written because I could not put this down. This isn't fast paced by any means of the imagination. It just goes throughout this whole year, and the thing she does, she starts taking a pill that she is kind of blacked out for entire days, and she'll wake up with no memory of what she's done. And that's all I can really say. It's one of those really slow paced books that weirdly have me reading it super, super fast. I just really, really liked how it was written. The amount of detail and the amount of devotion that the writer put into our main character and their point of view, it's just astounding. So I gotta give this 4.5. I was one book short of finishing my TBR. I never got to Big Swiss. This is my last book to read of the month, and now I don't want to read it because I feel like when I do make a smaller TBR, it's like I am prioritizing different books, and I sort of subconsciously push the ones I don't really want to read to the last bit. So now this feels like I don't want to read this, although at some point I obviously did because I bought it. But I also have been seeing some reviews that aren't so great. It's more like a 3-star kind of read. I don't need any more 3 stars. So now who knows when I'm going to read that. But anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these. As always, tell me your opinions on them. And yeah, I hope this setup, this camera and microphone worked out. I guess we'll see when I try to upload it. Okay, goodbye.